said so,
Okay.
but you're allowed to use.
Okay, welcome to the class. Of course, at the very beginning, I'm just taking the permission to videotape the class. Is that okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect. So if I summarize what we did in the last class is mainly trying to understand the data collection needs, like what type of transportation data that we need to collect, what type of equipment we can do, both traffic as well as travel demand. So we looked at the supply-related measures, supply-related traffic counts, at the same time demand-related travel surveys, and also looking at some of the trends for Greater Toronto and Hamilton area to see what's going on, what we can infer from there, and how those will be useful for policy analysis as well as future use for four-stage modeling. We'll talk more on that in one of the classes after the study break. Today, I'd like to go back to a fundamental theory of transportation planning these days, which is this multimodal transportation planning. So the idea here is there must be some sort of an integration of different types of modes, different types of mode people can use, the opportunities, the services that we can provide. And I will talk extensively on the backbone of that multimodal transportation planning, which is public transit, like what it looks like, what are the system components. I would like to talk about the control and one of the innovative idea that's going on, which is much more applicable for HRM, is the bus rapid transit among those transit group. So I will try to give you some ideas about how we can plan for it and what we can do. And at the end also we'll start talking about this active transportation, biking plan or helping pedestrians. So that's generally the reading list. There is this GCRP report which is on the bus rapid transit, and you can also look at this Department of Transport UK's website, which will give you some standards for designing cycling infrastructure and many planning consideration, design consideration for that. And textbook, this Vukan Vucic, who is the guru of transportation, public transit area, research area, as well as like the academic field in general. So Vucic's book is also in our library, so if you'd like to look at some of the chapter, but I will extensively cover in the lecture most of the concepts that you guys would need. So what is this multimodal system planning? Any idea? What is this multimodal system planning?
Maybe it's planning so that people can use multiple types of transit to get to their destination.
Close, very close. Multiple type of transport options. So transit is one, but the idea, the multimodal theory, postulates that we need to offer for the user multiple opportunities of transportation, which includes car, which we know, but at the same time we bring back all other options like public transit, like biking, bike walking, active transportation, different types, so that people have a choice set, that their choice set grows. Right now, many people doesn't have that choice set. Some people are, maybe I have car, that's why I take car, but I don't have a car, I'm more captive transit rider. Then you don't have your choice tool as well. So as many types of things that we can offer. The same concept actually being used by this bike share, car share as well. So it's offering more mobility options, multiple types of mobility, multiple types of choice set within your consideration. We all are, as we argued, we all are utility maximizer, rational person. So we always try to maximize our utility. So as a planner, as a systems planner, transportation system planner, our job is offering more better opportunities for all people of all types of mode, not just offering the roads for car transit. So that's the main idea whenever we think about system planning, transportation system planning, now we would like to think about it for multiple modes. That's where the complete street concept evolved from. So it's meaning we need to share all types of user, but that's one component of doing that. There is many other components, the service provision for public transit, bike parking spot or shower room in the workplaces. So it's a complete package of like offering and pushing for multiple mode use possibilities. So you are generating some utilities for people. That should be the focus of this new way of doing transportation system planning, which we call multimodal system planning. So it's a challenging. So the reason was like, I think obviously you all know, like the things that's going on is not sustainable. We have energy security issues and all other things, public health and others. We made those comments in the first lecture. So there is a need for rethinking how we do transportation planning. That's where all things actually emerged from. And there is a renewed interest in public transit, like over like last few years. One of the reasons is, as I argue all the time, is whenever you get public transit, better public transit, the better the active transportation support or the design will be available. So there is those kind of things going on. So what we need to know, what we need to do to create a sustainable multimodal system. As a planner or engineer, what do you guys need to do just before I start like theoretical discussions? Yes. Yep. What else?
You make it easy to switch between modes.
Right. So intermodal connectivity is important. Awareness, educating people is important.
Chris actually stole my point. Sorry.
Okay.
It's okay.
Anything else? As a planner, we can anything else that we can also do? Building alternative modes transportation system itself, right? That's another bigger piece. Like our main focus is maintaining our car-based road system. Instead, public transit network. We need to grow that. Active transportation network. We need to grow that. Biking infrastructure. We need to build that. So that like those things are coming as well. So it's important to know about those things, how we can offer. And these are another way of looking at is which we talked that we have to ensure efficiency in the road network as well. So we can use make it more efficient use of those kind of things. We have to also do the demand management way. Like we talked in the first class, there is one is supply oriented. We can build more things, but at the same time we can reduce the demand. Say peak hour, flexible peak hour, flexible office hour. That's a demand management measure. There are many other kinds of those type of things. We have to design connected, integrated transit system. We have to do increase ridership in the public transit reliability. This is a big point. Reliability is very important. Reliability means like timeliness of schedule adherence, like when buses are going and moving. By the way, I'm not moving too much from here because so that we can capture in the video. I do not usually prefer this way to when I do my lectures. And also we need to start integration. The point that we need to integration, the transfer times and other kinds of things should be much important. So one of the biggest idea here is we have a road network, we are maintaining it, trying to make it efficient, mainly from the car flow point of view. Now, instead of thinking about car flow, how we can move people, that become a big idea. Mobility, you will hear this term over and over again. How we move people, that should be mainly our focus. And to move people like nicely, we need one of the biggest thrust should be offering more public transit options. Because what? Why not only bike or pedestrian? That should be our focus. Why public transit?
Two reasons. You can move more people faster, and it's more accessible for everyone with mobility needs or disabilities. You can't necessarily bike or walk where they go. So people can get that suits their needs.
Reduce the emission.
To reduce emission, but that can, active transportation can do so as well.
Transit has a similar geographic catchment to vehicular travel, so that you couldn't necessarily just switch from cars to cycling or walking because people can't walk or ride that far.
It's the land use.
The land use is already there.
It's the city, the way we built our city. It's like the way we built the city. It's not active transportation. Other types of biking or walking is feasible to do your work trips. Like we have this suburbanization going on and the urban structure. So transit could be the feasible first alternative to auto if we can design it well, if it's a better way of like going forward for that. So that's very important. We should be looking for. So that's why that should be the backbone of the next generation transportation. That should be the main way of just rebuilding. And it's not just the public transit way. It's just thinking about even the high-speed rail connecting Boston to Washington D.C., for instance, or Montreal to Toronto. Those are the also bigger ideas of this kind. Or we need to build like a different kind of transit infrastructure, because the way we have built our city, like we cannot offer, even if we connect Bedford to Halifax, a bike lane. How many people can feasibly do that? It's not within that 10-kilometer or 15-kilometer threshold, or the walking would be maybe 2-kilometer maximum, but 1 kilometer, 1 mile is the most convenient. So the multimodal, the entire idea comes with this transit systems planning, how we can bring better transit, fast, reliable, different types, and then integrate other modes within that. That is one of the biggest area, practically speaking, that we can start planning for. So that's why I emphasize it, like in a big way, that public transit should be the core discussion point for any multimodal system planning, any types of like a changing, rethinking about our transportation systems planning. Transit should be at the forefront in our discussion. At the same time, in the land use side, at the same time, we should start growing, bringing more high density around transit stations, creating those mobility hubs, creating those transit-oriented development, so that more people like have a better utility of using transit. We can do those kind of things. So if you look at Europe, if you look at other places, like the way people became more multimodal is because they have a strong transit system. Look at Amsterdam, very, very good, well-connected transit system. That's why bike and other things work for the short trips or connected to the transit. Look at like all the trip purposes, like how bike, walk can be working, because they are actually the last mile and first mile problem. Like because car, why do you choose car? Because it's door-to-door service. Like one of the main reasons is a door-to-door service. So the multimodalism is trying to see, okay, the transit trip, there is a transit trip, then there is a connections to the transit stations. Maybe that will be with the bike or walk, and then from the transit to others. Because the way our city is built, if we see more and more compact growth, if we see that like we are building our cities in a different way, then we can rethink about like doing other ways of like maybe more pedestrianization, maybe more biking. But we are not there yet as a North American city. So we have to be rational and practical. To begin with, like the first set of the things should be, we need to shore up investment on transit. That should be our transformative infrastructure that we talked about. So I will talk very quickly on each of the system component of transit, like what it entails. So in public transit, so when we are calling about public transit, meaning that it can carry a lot of people, it's free for everybody to access from. So those kind of things, what are the system components? Of course, these vehicles. the train, that is one bus fleet, that's for the bus-based service and the rolling stock, all rail vehicles, those are the terminologies that we use, and this right-of-way, travelways, street, highways, busways, tracks. So not only just the regular transport road spaces, we can also create bus bays. We can also create dedicated bus lanes, which are being pushed in many Australian cities, for example, even in Europe a big way at the same time in progressive cities in North America. So we will have to be very. So those are the main things. So look at, like, this is one of the third photo I see. I used to use this Go Transit for 4 years. I used to live in Hamilton when I was studying in U of T, and I really felt satisfied when I was riding those Go Transit and seeing that garden is jam-packed with all these things. And this is a utility. You know, that's that travel time. I knew in the rush hour, if I'm taking transit, it's 1 hour, my travel one-way journey. But if I'm taking a car, it's 2 hours. So, clear advantage of using transit. So, and also, so this is one of the thing, and the transit system, you all know, subway is another dedicated, and this the transit terminals are also, depots are also important. These are the system components. We have streetcars in Toronto as well. In various cities, we have the bus system, bus to feeder those out. So those are the system components. So looks like the right of way is one, vehicles is one. Third one is this stop, station, terminal. There is a typology for each of those components, like the stops, minor stop, major stop, and each of those has a standard, how you design, where you design. We have to keep those in mind. Transfer stations, multimodal hubs, those are also important things. So for example, our Vero rail station can be a multimodal hub. Like if we design that well with our commuter rail and then BRT stations or all of those kind of things. So whenever you are designing a public transit or newer kind of public transit, we have to keep those in mind. These are the system components where we can increase the user experience, at the same time reduce the travel time. The main job is reducing the travel time for transit so that it's competitive to auto travel time. This is the biggest idea. And then you have these transit routes we all probably are aware of, like our transit maps you can see, and those are the things. And within transit maps, there are some trunk lines, there are some feeder lines. We have to also differentiate, like which do what purposes. We talked in the first class, there is a hierarchy of roads, right? Highways offering more mobility, then secondary roads, then tertiary roads, cul-de-sac and all other kinds which offers more direct access. The same way we should build a transit system where that hierarchy exists. It's important. Because from the system component point of view, like we are talking about a systems planning, right? Unless in Halifax, do we have any hierarchy? Not too much.
They started.
They started. That's the positive way of going forward.
Yeah, we're moving forward slowly.
Slowly, but we need that because we need some services should provide that direct mobility, quick mobility, and say in Toronto, we can give that example. GO train, subway system, it's that hierarchical, the highways, transit highways, right, in certain ways. And then there is a feeder system of buses, but there could be also feeder system of LRT, BRT, and then there could be a tertiary bus feeder system to collect people, bringing into the trunk line. So we have to think about that system. I'm trying to reinforce this system idea. These are all systems, so we have to actually make every part functional so that it works together to give that experience. We cannot do the same level of service in the suburban area and in the downtown area, because in that case, that travel time will not be a good competition with the auto travel time. If you have looked at before this moving forward transit plan, if you looked at like the earlier years bus routes, you might have seen that the Halifax Transit, most of the buses in the end area try to give a door-to-door service. It's always this curvilinear, some spaghetti design. I was always looking at it. That's the killer. That's the killer. You cannot do that. You should not do that when it's a multimodal systems planning. The idea is we have to bring those people offer competitive travel time. So there should be walking, but I understand why they do it. There should be a walking facility, the pedestrian sidewalk. There should be a bike lane to connect those major hubs, and then you bring people more faster. So that should be the multimodal system. It's not just one mode trying to do everything. That's another aspect of multimodal system planning. We cannot do that. We cannot do the door-to-door service the way auto offers. It's not feasible, at least the technology that we have at this point. Now, there is also other system components that you need to think whenever you are thinking about transit planning. That we have to think about network. Like, the network is important, and within that network there should be a hierarchy so that you can see the coverage, how much it covers, how much fast, reliable, and all of those kind of things, but all things are connected. So there is a connections, overlap, and transit lines, just if you look at the transit maps, it's not like the roadway one. It's in one road there could be 3 or 4 lines, right? So we have to also do those, like the network needs to be planned that way. We don't want bunching in one road, say Göttingen, all the buses like that coming and bunching on that. So we have to think about from a network point of view. And then we have to grow the network. A very strong network in the downtown core, and then suburban collectors in the strategic location, and the land use should follow those kind of things. So that's important. And bus garages, you need to plan for that as well. The control system is also important. The vehicle detection, communication, signal equipment, like how you control. For the subways, underground transit, it's much more easier to offer those controls. But the mixed traffic bus systems, like you have to think about that. Okay. So another big concept for transit planning is the right of way. Right of way, we can categorize it into 3. Right of way category A is the exclusive right of way. Grade separated or grade crossing, but with grade protection of the track. So subways, for example, the regional rail, commuter rail, if we have one, then that will be the same kind. LRT, some of the LRT can be. The Spider Road in Toronto have a dedicated streetcar road, right? So that's the category A, exclusive right of way. That's best. Why?
Transit doesn't compete with cars.
Right, and it's offers the best possible travel time. It's the best possible travel time it can offer. So you know it's reliable. There's no other external factors to interfere for. And then you have this number C is the shared right of way. Shared right of way. As well as in the middle, like the dedicated right of way. In some cases, in some intersections, because intersections are intersection treatment is very important because most of the delays comes from intersection. Most of that I will talk about in ITS class. The intersection delay is one of the biggest delay. So whenever you can do those intersections or part of this roadway, maybe base road when it's coming down, there could be some sort of a transit treatment, some sort of transit treatment. And number C is this shared right of way, which may involve some transit priority. Transit priority through signal timing, through queue jumping. I will show very soon in this class what does it mean. And also, like some of the other system component is the technology, the support. We have a rubber tire kind of buses. We have steering wheel. We have maglev kind of services. I really enjoyed in China last year this maglev as well as the high-speed rail. It's really phenomenal way of transporting people and so fast, offering the user experiences. And these are the more and more that we build those, the better we will have a more connected regional and national kind of network. We usually always think about our municipal level network, but if you want to grow the similar way, the interstate highway system that we have to connect all the car and all other kinds of things, like we can do that transit way of doing that. there are also lateral gliders, like within guided pieces. We can have a diesel and electric modes. Diesel is one of the big issues for the environmental point of view. People are trying to convert to the electric or other kinds of buses. As well as we have different kinds of control for the buses that the say bus rapid transit can have an optical alignment to really park in a nice and smooth way instead of like just braking. Some people I know like complain about even for TTS subway system when the brakes goes like it probably is not the best experience they can have ever had. They improvised on that as they go. So those are the system components we have to be thinking about. And then there are also different types of service types that you need to do for transit planning is the route type. So you have to plan as a planner, like whether it should be short haul, whether it should be a city and regional transit. You have to also think about the auxiliary service, express service, depending on the demand. Remember we talked about in the last class, we collect origin and destination information. That will help us guide you to think about where we need a peak period express bus system, where we need more local service, or which time of the day is also important. So the information feeds into these planning processes. Like that way, each planners will be doing those kind of things. All day, commuter peak time. So these are the route type, operation type, and service time. These are in your hand as a planner, what you will be doing. Now, any questions so far? Okay, so there are also classes of different kinds of modes which we need to think about. We cannot just think, oh, this is the best transit, that's why we should be introducing it in certain cities. It depends on the demand, it depends on the information, facts, and evidences that you have. That's very important. Sometimes we just think about, oh, we need that. So there are these categorization, low capacity, medium capacity, high capacity. I think you guys mostly know about these kind of things. The first one is we call paratransit, dial-a-ride. Maybe rural communities like might need those kind of like services, or the aging population. So you have to think about also the market segment. We call it market segment. Like what kind of market segment you are serving, and that market segment can be socioeconomic market segment, like age and other things. It could be also trip market segment. What kind of trip you are trying to serve? Is it a work trip? Is it a non-work trip? Recreational trip? Discretionary trip? We talked about the different types of activities in the first class: mandatory activities, maintenance activities, and discretionary activities. So transit planning needs those information and thought in general, like to do those kind of things. And the high capacity mode is the semi-rapid or rapid transit. The reason why I'm introducing these concepts in this class, I have even seen in various planning agencies are misusing, misbranding the kind of service they are offering. Like the rapid transit should be based on the performance, not just the capacity. If you have an articulated bus and say, oh, that's a high capacity mode, no, high capacity mode meaning that it has both performance as well as the capacity to move people faster. Like those are the way we should be branding, not like saying what they are not. And there is also say medium capacity street transit, right of way C, low speed, there is a reliability issue. So whatever schedule you put, there must be some sort of a adherence to that schedule. That's what we want. It's okay even sometimes for the travel time to be longer, but you need to be reliable and consistent that you will be in that stop, because transit is a very complex, like in each stop you should go, so people needs to plan and have that experience. Those are important things. So high performance modes are semi-rapid transit, which we call sometimes this BRT. Substantial section should be right of way B. So that's another piece. Like we cannot tell say our Metrolink route 1. You guys know there are 3 routes from Sackville, Portland, Hill. Like there is a little bit better. So it's a better transit, yeah, but it's still not BRT. because it doesn't have substantial section with right-of-way B. There are some transit treatment. If right before the McDonald Bridge, you'll see queue jumping, like the bus goes up and then they can merge earlier than the traffic flow. But we should think about, if we are trying to offer this bus rapid transit, we have to do those kind of things. For the right-of-way LRT, it should be right-of-way A, more dedicated. So we should not simply thinking about better bus or better branding, but we have to deliver, even from the infrastructure point of view, like those kind of right-of-way A or B, to have those experience of high-performance modes. So it's important. And rapid transit is a right-of-way A, subways and GO transit is completely that kind of things that we should be offering. Now, whenever you do transit planning, there are a couple of things that you do. The 4 things you do whenever you do 4 major components of your planning task. If you are hired by Metro Transit, for example, so what you will do is the network design. So you do the network, like how you will be growing, and it needs to be done up in advance, and then you have to roll it out, because there is a familiarity issue of people when you are changing the routes and other kinds of things. So before moving forward to plan, the Metro Transit actually did that, like the familiarity piece. But the network design is very important. The first of all, foremost for network design is the agency constraints, how much funding you have. Like that's one of the big constraints. The reason why we don't build a lot of transit is also related with that funding part available. Land use and road characteristics is another big piece. You need to know the density, how much potential demand it can do. So anywhere we have, and the road characteristics, the turning radius you have to look at. You have to look at like what kind of access it's offering to the businesses or other kind, land use type, commercial, residential, and all of those kind of things. For the stop location, for example, you have to think about those. That's a part of it. Whenever we are talking about network, it's not just the line you are thinking about, it's also thinking about where those stops, the stops going on. What we'll put our stops in. As I explained in the systems approach, like just think about the entire network is lines and points. It's a node and edges, a graph theory or GIS. How many of you have GIS experience? So it's a GIS way of actually thinking about it. Like, because GIS is a system component replication in certain ways. So we have to plan on the edges, you have to plan on also the stop location, where should you put those kind of things. And the travel demand is the biggest driver. We need to know like what kind of people they're living, not how many people only. Sometimes people are really like putting, oh, how many people live in? Maybe they all have multiple cars. Like unless, and in those cases you need to offer many travel time better than the transit travel time better than the auto. But for other kinds, like you need the car ownership information. You need to understand like where there's potential like demand can go. And you do a lot of this. This is like the most like a common task that you guys will be doing is setting route frequencies and timetable. Like it's a very complex task, each route, what will be the frequency, what will be the headway, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and or half an hour. And why it's important like to think about those kind of things. Why frequency headway is so important. It's a resource as well. Like the biggest piece is the resource. Do you know? So frequency, like say we have own buses, a fleet of buses.